A silly bow on the head, poinsettias in the background. You know what that means? Christmas gifts. But wait, it's July, you say. It doesn't matter, we're getting a head start. We are doing Christmas in July, so let's get started. So my husband and my kids are like, wow, you really look like Minnie Mouse. And I'm like, no. Now I look like Minnie Mouse. All kidding aside, I've got a fun episode of DIY Christmas gifts planned for you. It's part of a collaboration. But before I tell you about that collaboration, we are gonna get started on our first DIY Christmas gift, which is a wood family cookbook. I have some of these 12 by 24 inch craft pieces of wood that I bought in bulk a long time ago, back when wood was a little bit more affordable, but hopefully the price of wood will come down very soon. What we're ultimately gonna need are two 9 by 12 pieces of wood that look a little like this. Now I cut mine down out on my miter saw to get it to the right dimensions. Then I took my palm sander and sanded it really good around the edges, around the corners, just so there's no like sharp things that you could get caught on. And then I've designed a free printable for you to use, and it says the secret ingredient is always love. I like that. And then there's a blank space where you will put the name right there, and then family cookbook. I'm gonna cut a vinyl stencil for mine just because I don't have a very steady hand, and it gives me a nice clean look that way. But you don't need a machine to do that because you can just print it out on paper like so, and then you get a piece of graphite paper like this, and then you put this underneath, and then you trace the image onto your wood, and it's right there. And then you can fill that in with paint, or what I'm gonna be using is some antiquing glaze, and that way it will kind of give us a two-tone effect, kind of like stain, so you can still see the wood grain coming through, which is gonna look really cool. So I'm gonna be doing that with a stencil, and I just fill that in with the antiquing wax, and then we're gonna let that dry. And then we'll peel it back, or if you've done it by hand, you can just let that dry. And then you're left with something that looks a little bit like that. Isn't that cute? We're not even done yet, but I love the kind of two-toned stained effect that that gave with the antiquing glaze. And I also thought it would be kind of fun on the back to put Merry Christmas 2021, or whatever year you're doing this in, and then sign love, the Callahans, or whatever your name is, and then they will always remember that you gave them this really cute cookbook cover. But now we need to turn it into a binder. So I take a piece of paper and I trace the outline of where you put the holes for like a hole punch. And then we're gonna just take a drill and drill the holes in it. And then once we have that done, we are going to take some kind of sealer. Now you can use a spray on polyurethane, a wipe on, you can roll it on, brush it on, whatever works for you. Now that we've got our cookbook cover completed, the way we're gonna turn it into a binder is you can pick up these book rings at the Dollar Tree in a pack of 8, so super affordable. And we're just gonna hook that through, and it gives you a lot of room to put quite a lot of recipes. But the wood cover really provides a durable place to keep those family recipes safe. And I just think this is a really fun gift idea. I know I would love to receive this, and I made one for myself. And I'm really excited about it. I really love how this turned out, but what do you think? Today's episode is a part of the Christmas in July collab that is put on by Shannon over at the Daily DIYer. So once you're done watching this episode, make sure you check out the link that I put in the description box below. Okay, So it seems like I always have to do some kind of cutting board. I love cutting boards. I love kitchen items as gifts. I've got another cutting board idea for you. This actually kind of started from one that I made at Easter where I did a bunny-shaped faux cutting board. I just made it out of scrap wood and I didn't intend to use it much. You know, it was just more as a decorative accent. Being Christmas, I wanted to make one that was food safe and meant to be used as an actual cutting board. So what I did is I went to Home Goods and found one. So what we're gonna do is I've created another free printable, and all of my free printable links will be in the description box below. We are going to trace this on with that graphite paper that we used earlier and trace it onto our cutting board with the graphite paper. If you have been nervous to use power tools, this is an excellent first project to do. So for this one, we'll take you outside. So we're about to get powerful. We are going to use a jigsaw. It's the first saw that I ever worked with. Once you get outside yourself and get over the fear, it's really easy to work with. You can really control where you're going. It doesn't take up a whole lot of room. It's not very expensive to buy, so it's a really good tool to have in your arsenal. So we're going to start by cutting the star first because it's kind of small and we need it to be kind of clamped down into place. We don't want to be working with small areas, so we're going to do that first. Then we're going to cut out the tree. And then we'll maybe sand up the edges a little bit. Now with the wood pieces cut out, we're gonna drill a hole in the top of the tree. My cutting board came with a little leather strap that we're gonna cut down a little bit and tie the star to the tree and kind of have it be like a little decorative embellishment. I kind of liked the idea of a little dangly star on it, and I thought that would be fun. And so we'll attach that now. Then I just took a little cold coffee that I stole from a neighbor, since I don't keep any in my house, and went over the freshly cut edges on the cutting board with that to finish it off. And then you have a gift that will not only be used but displayed throughout the holiday season, and every time they look at it they can remember that that came from you. And it's such a meaningful, wonderful gift idea that's functional, beautiful, and just amazing. I hope you like that one. So for our next handmade Christmas gift, we are going to be making a porcelain bowl out of some air dry clay. So all we're going to do is grab a big ball of it, kind of roll it up and smooth it out a little bit, and then we're going to take a rolling pin and roll it out on top of a piece of plastic wrap. And then once we do that, you're gonna take just a regular bowl that you have, like a cereal bowl. This one is about 5 to 5.5 inches, somewhere in there, where you're gonna place it upside down, and we are going to take a utility knife and kind of cut around it. Then I just have a little bit of water on hand to kind of smooth out the edges and smooth out the top. Now that we've got our circle cut out, I wanted to embellish it a little bit more, so I picked up these key charms at Michael's, and I just take one of these and I kind of clip off the little ring and use just the charm portion, and I press that down into our clay. And then once I've got that, I'm going to lift it up and set it in a bowl, at which point we're going to let it dry for 24 hours. Then after 24 hours, I lift it up very carefully. I peel back the plastic wrap and I flip it over and let it dry for an additional 24 hours. And then we have something that looks a little bit like this. I'm gonna embellish it just a little bit more. You can customize it with initials and then trace it on and then fill it in with paint. You will see that I'm using another stencil to keep it nice and crisp, but you might also want to try taking the outside of some stickers and using that as a stencil if you're just doing an initial like me and you don't have a vinyl cutting machine. That's something that I've done before and used like an outline of a sticker in lieu of a stencil, and it worked out great as well. So I hope that makes sense. Now to fill it in, you could use whatever paint color you want. I'm going to use this Rub and Buff for our lettering, and then I'm also going to use this same Rub and Buff to paint the entire underside. I think it's just a really pretty gold color, and then we're going to do a little bit around the edge of the little bowl in that Rub and Buff, and we're going to let that dry, and it actually dries pretty quickly. At this point, I decide I am happy with the way it looks, and I decide to spray a high gloss sealer onto the back and the front. Unfortunately, when I did this on the front, it kind of had a weird reaction to the air dry clay, and it kind of made it turn back to the gray color again instead of the bright white that it had dried to. I was not happy with this, so once the sealer dried, I went back in and hand painted a few coats of white chalk paint to return it to that nice bright white color that we originally had. But because the sealer was already on there, it did cause some kind of like crackling effect, which did end up looking fine in the end, almost like aged looking. But I think I would suggest that if you were to make this for yourself, to go ahead and paint the entire front out white to begin with before doing any of your gold accents. That way you don't get any of the crackling. And then of course, after repainting everything and everything looking good once again, I went back in and did a clear coat. In the end, I'm really happy with the overall look of how this turned out. It was extremely affordable to make, and it's a really beautiful place that you could keep your jewelry or your keys, but totally customizable for the decor and tastes of the person you're giving it to. What do you think of this gift? For our next DIY, I have been seeing all of these like prize candles on Amazon. They're pretty cool. I will link them in the description box below, where they put in some kind of piece of jewelry inside a candle and you melt it down and then you pull it out and then you get a piece of jewelry. And so I thought, what if there was a way to totally customize that for a person and just kind of recreate that idea, but on a more personal level? I found these new jars at Dollar Tree. They're really cute. They are 20-ounce jars, $1. If you don't have these in your Dollar Tree, you could order like a case of 24 and make a whole bunch of them for Christmas. So I gathered up some of my favorite similarly scented candles and decided to melt them down. I also had some new ones as well to kind of add to it because it was kind of a larger candle. These are Antique Candle Company. I really love the smell of their candles. I'm an affiliate for them. And what I also like is that they are all colored similarly, so you can kind of mix and match those together nicely. I just place them in a pot of water and bring them to a boil, and then I turn it down so it doesn't crack the jar or go too crazy. Then I got these wicks off of Amazon. I really liked the idea of the wide burning wick, and I kind of was excited about them, but after actually lighting them, I would not recommend these wood wicks, and I would just use some regular candle wicks on something like this. Maybe you could just use 2 of them and space them about a ½ inch to an inch apart. Then you're going to pour in about 1 to 2 inches of wax and let that kind of cool, and while that's cooling, we're going to take our piece of jewelry and wrap it extremely well in some tin foil. We're talking several layers here. Just before that wax is all the way cool, we're going to set our jewelry into place and kind of stick it down in. When it's fully cool, then we're going to add the rest of the wax in. And these wood wicks are actually kind of tall as well. I actually had some special clippers that I clip off heads of nails on that are stuck into pieces of wood. And so I clipped the wood wick with that. But this is another reason why these wicks are not my favorite, because you can much more easily cut down a regular wick with just scissors. Now, I designed a label that I am going to provide free to you that's blank, and you can customize it with the name of who you're giving it to. I use canva.com for stuff like this, and then I just print it out on sticker paper. I made one as an example and one for my friend Emily, who just had a birthday. Again, I would recommend different wicks, but how fun would this gift be to put together for all of the people in your life? I've seen some where they've even hid money inside the candles, so you could just really get creative with what you are hiding in the candle and fishing out. What do you think of this as a gift idea? Well, that was fun, right? Well, if you want some more Christmas inspiration right here in July, make sure you check out the Christmas in July playlist. I've linked it in the description box below. And if you enjoyed this episode, here's another one that I think you'll like as well. And if you haven't done so already, consider hitting the subscribe button right there. It's super easy to do, and I'd love if you joined the DIY Niner family. And to all of my DIY Niners, I just want to remind you once again that you are more powerful than you know. We'll see you next time. Bye.